So welcome back everybody, and what a fantastic start to the day. Brilliant speakers. We are going to have those speakers on the panel tomorrow to answer some of your questions. But today's panel is full of great new, young, fresh designers who are all working in our favorite occupation of transit mapping, and we're going to go through and introduce them in a second. If I can start, if you don't mind, by introducing myself. Andrew mentioned the 1960s, and I think I'm one of the few people who was around in the 1960s, and I was a very annoying child. And I used to go on the London Underground, and my mum would be so annoyed with me that the only thing she could do to shut me up from saying, "Mummy, mummy, mummy," was to give me a copy of the London Underground map. So in the 1960s, when the Beatles were still playing their music, I was looking at the London Underground map and being fascinated by it and not annoying my mum on the Underground. And that's how I started being interested in the design of transit maps. And then a few years later, I was collecting them from around the world. Barcelona was in my early collection, Paris was in my early collection, and I was lucky enough to get one from New York. And then finally, I brought those together in a book, which I published in 2003 as Metro Maps of the World. Later, it became Transit Maps of the World. And I have a little present for you here. This was produced in 2003. It's like a map of the world, like on the front of Transit Maps of the World, with all of the cities that have metros, and it looks a bit like an underground map. So if someone could come to the front, and you can all have one of these. This is from 20 years ago. So it's a relic, a souvenir of the past. And please, I hope they all go around. And if there's not enough to go around, do come and ask me and I'll post you one. So a little souvenir from the first book. But now we're going to introduce the real important people, the people who are currently designing transit maps. So to begin with, let's start with Samuel over there. Sam became a design apprentice in 2012, although he does confess to have had no background in the field, apparently. But you went straight into design, and here you are today. In your spare time, you designed a map of the Singapore transit system, and it was so impressed the transit operator that they took you on board to do more work for them, I believe. Is this right? You'll tell us all about this.
Yeah, okay. Quick
Please.
background. So, yes, I did start a design apprenticeship, and then that was there that I realized I need to go to design school. So I went to design school. I graduated with a thesis on the wayfinding system of Singapore, and that's what got me the job. Yeah.
Now, very important, he's designed maps for Qatar Rail and for the tram system, and recently started his own design studio, I believe. So we'll hear a bit more about that. Please give a warm welcome to Samuel Lim, by the way. Adrian describes himself as an avid public transport user, designer, and planner. A perfect panelist for us then. He's also worked on a national cycling plan in Indonesia, and he studied urban planning, I believe, in Holland. And he's currently a wayfinding design advisor at PT Kereta API Indonesia, also known as KAI. Bit easier. Direct from Jakarta. Put your hands together for Adrian Yassin Suleiman. Ilya is a web and app designer. He's got many interests, ranging from typography to user interfaces, but his stunning contribution to our field is the book that I wish I had written. It's called Designing Transit Maps. He will tell you all about it, I'm sure. It is the most detailed study of the subject ever made, in my opinion, and the man is a complete hard-working hero. Please welcome, all the way from Chelyabinsk in Russia, Ilya Berman.
Thank you.
And Marty has been a designer most of his working life. He's worked on projects from exhibition stands to public transport, and he's recently worked with our very own Jukerovic to redesign the regional map of Barcelona. It's led to great cleanliness and simplification, and it's one of Europe's best and most intensive transit systems, and he's justifiably proud of his new map. Please welcome from Barcelona, Marty Riz.
Thank you.
Now, I read a great quote that a map is like a landscape painting. Just as the artist conveys the image through paint. So our cartographer represents the landscape scientifically on a map. Isn't that lovely? We are really artists as well as everything else. Now, today we heard Jörg and Richard and Andrew and, of course, Yo, and we want to get straight in with our panel and ask them what was inspirational about what they heard this morning. So anyone first, please dig in. What do our panelists think about what they heard this morning? Sam's going on. Yeah.
Oh, just to get everyone to know, we have no idea what are going to be asked. So this is like, whoa, was I listening? Yes, I'm very inspired by how everyone this morning shared with us very deep insights on what they have done in their respective fields. So it could be architecture, it could be what Yo has done for design, and maps for you. I think what we received this morning was very deep, meaning it will take you a lot of years to reach the kind of insights they have arrived at. So that was a privilege for us to be able to just get it for free, right? To just listen to what they have learned. So, and it's also confirmed a lot of assumptions that I have had on my own. So that was very validating. It felt really good, like to feel like, oh wow, an expert actually said the same thing as I thought, and it confirmed my thoughts. So that was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe to summarize a bit about this morning session. I mean, I came from Indonesia. Well, it's a seemingly large country, but it's really still developing in terms of public transport. So listening to all of the sessions, especially from you, explaining like the types of hubs, I tried to like talk to my friends back there, like see where is Jakarta is about, and it's not there. I would say like, so obviously like we get a lot of things that yeah we can learn apparently. In Indonesia currently we have a lot of hype of having hubs as names, but it's not hub at all. It's just like a building with a bus stop in front, but they call it transport hub. But seeing like all of the examples of like an actual transport hub should be, it's really just of course an eye-opening session, and of course I will look forward to the entire session also today and tomorrow.
I think we were lucky to hear the presentations by Andrew and you this morning because of the experience they had is much broader than just designing, things in graphic design tool. And when somebody who is not into this stuff asks me what is so fascinating about transit map design, it's like just lines of different colors and there is no life in it, they would sometimes say. For me, it's so opposite, because to do this job well, you need to understand so much about how people live, how people move, how people think, how different all those people are, and how different they are around the world. And when you listen to all these presentations and see all these examples, which are very diverse, it again reminds you why this job is so much fun, and it lets you see the world from a very different perspectives, and there's almost much more to learn than you have already learned. So I was just inspired by a lot of examples that I haven't seen before and that I will have a chance to learn from in the future. So that was, I think, the most inspiring thing so far.
Well, my family and friends also think that I'm just drawing lines and using colors. So, but at last, yeah, we move millions of people, and our artworks or our maps at last help people to find a way. It's very inspiring, Yo, because everything he talked is about help people to make the information more understandable. So I think this is our goal as a graphic designer, our map makers. So I think it's a pleasure to be here, seeing how you in each city works very hard to help people to live better. So I think it's very inspiration, of course.
Beautiful. And on the maps that you guys produce, you obviously have to show hubs. Hubs are important, as we have learned. Is there anything about what we've heard today that will help you in maybe rethinking how we show hubs or how we help the public to get through the hubs and interchanges? Start at that end, or does anyone want to volunteer?
I can start if you want. In some cases, we represent hubs just as a linking station, but for example, in Barcelona, we have a full integrated system. So just with one card or with one ticket, you can validate in each mode of transport, in each operator. Here in Hong Kong, if you take a bus, you pay. And with the same car, if you take a metro, you pay again. Then I think the concept of hub in Barcelona takes more strong, because we really can interchange between operators without finishing the previous journey. And I think when I see the hubs in our map, I understand a hub on one way. But maybe in other maps, I can see the hub like just interchanging station. Also, if we add an extra services like bike sharing, so the concept grows a lot and it's really a hub, then I think it was EO that also talk about have shops in the hubs. So introduce new facilities in these hubs, because we have a really crowded and frequented space that we have to take our best of this place.
Sorry. I think in Singapore, our context of hub is very different, which I will cover tomorrow. The way we look at hubs I noticed, is actually quite drastically different from what we've seen today, because of how actually every station is considered a hub for Singaporeans. So we never considered or felt the need to explicitly, highlight them, because it's very normal to transfer to a bus to complete your journey. In fact, the way we charge the fares will be continuous. It's by distance based all the way to your last stop on your bus. So it's almost unthinkable for someone to think that their journey ends at the train station unless they stay next to it. So for the local community in Singapore, it's very, very normal to just, you take the train, change to which bus, stop at which stop, and then you finally arrive, or you switch to personal mobility devices. So I think it's interesting, and it made me realize, I should then talk about Singapore's hubs, like why we treat them like that, because of our density is very different. So yeah, tomorrow we'll cover that.
And thinking about what Yo showed us, that plan of the decision points. First of all, I sit on the metro, then I get off the metro, then I look for my bus. I mean, is that something then that's not difficult for Singaporeans? It's very, very simple. You don't have to have anything new there on the map at all.
Yeah, it's very integrated. So it's not like how do I say? It's quite natural, I would say. So you will know which bus to take right after, because it's part of your journey plan, and then which exit to get to will get you to that bus stop. It's building of the bus stop. It's part of the contract of building the train station. So no Singaporean, or rather every Singaporean, would expect there will be a bus stop outside the station. It is even part of the architecture, right? So I didn't think it was a privilege, to have this kind of integration where the authorities made a very early policy level that it is one set. And therefore, which exit you go to will reach the buses that you need. It's very simple. Or in a bigger context, which I will also cover tomorrow, we have bus interchanges, which is like, let's say 20 buses. It will no longer be a stop by the roadside, it will be a building by itself. Then that's a different way of telling people, like, all the buses are there. So that's how we treat buses.
Yeah, I want to add something. I mean, even though I live just an hour fly away from Singapore in Jakarta, it's basically a heaven and earth situation. When I compared it, like Indonesians always see Singaporeans as like Singapore as like one of the, of course, top example that we always dream to have, and that shows. I mean, if I compare at least from what Singapore has and Jakarta has, like as he mentioned, every station in Singapore is basically a hub. it's just a very normal thing for you to, easily change and transfer to another mode. While in Jakarta is not so the case. So that's why the term of hub in Jakarta is just starting to gain traction, but it's quite in a wrong way, in the meaning that they always consider a hub is when you are finally physically connected to a sky bridge or whatever, instead of actually thinking of the entire holistic planning. And that shows in, at least I will show the map tomorrow, then in Jakarta, we kind of have to differentiate like what kind of interchange that has like, do you need to tap out first or you don't need to tap out? Because that really changes the thinking of people when traveling. If in Jakarta at least, when you want to change between lines, sometimes you really have to go out and basically you get charged twice because we don't really have those integrated fare or everything. We kind of have to alleviate those ways by showing, okay, this hub you can just transfer without having to go out, walk a kilometer or so. But we still have to note it on the map because it's adjacent. But because of the lack of planning, even though it's adjacent, as mentioned, like in those Yo's plan, like how hubs could be, most hubs in Jakarta are just like scattered stops, scattered stations that we just have to deal through. That is where Transport for Jakarta is trying to, ease the harsh of people. So that's why I also agree that while interchanges and hubs are often seen as how to show. I mean, we were just shown like how big Admiralty Station by Andrew yesterday, and you mentioned that hub could also be like a biggest barrier for people to take transit because just how bothersome it is to change modes. Then I realized to myself that's my case in Jakarta because sometimes I actually live next to a train station, but because if I want to use the train, it means that I have to change at one of the main stations that requires me to walk 15 minutes just to change lines. I mean, I could just take the bus or just take, Grab. That's an option that a lot of Jakartans are dealing with today.
Thank you very much for that. And thinking about those symbols that we use on the maps, I think both Jörg and Yo mentioned this in their talks. And in fact, Andrew touched on it as well with Hong Kong. It's become almost an international symbol, hasn't it? With this basically an open circle with an outline around it. And I on my book, I think I dated this back to about 1911. We saw these on maps, a long time before any of us were here. So this is something that's evolved gradually, but it is becoming a kind of an international symbol that's used in many maps. I mean, do you have a view on the interchange symbol? Do we need the same one all over the world?
I think the symbol you've mentioned is very recognizable around the world, but it's sort of binary. Either you see this thing and then it's an interchange, or it's just a tick or some simpler designation and then it's not an interchange. But from the passengers' points of view, it's not that simple because all these hubs, all these interchanges are different. In some of them, as you've mentioned, you need to pay twice, or you need to exit and then find some other entrance. In some others, you just pass from one train to another train over the platform, as we saw yesterday. In some places, you need to go outside, maybe under the rain, and then cross some busy road and then enter, but it's free. And there are so many options. And for the passenger to make a decision, to make a plan for their journey, they need to account for all of them. And then, when they are on site, they actually need to find their way from one train or bus or tram to another one. And so, from the map design point of view, we need to understand, at what level they need what pieces of this information and what pieces they don't need. For example, if you're planning a journey over a city, you don't need to know which particular escalator to take on some station. You just need to know whether you want to interchange here or here. And so using just one symbol may not be enough. You need to have at least some understanding of whether you will need to go outside or not, or would you need to pay again or not. This may be a factor in your decision making, but not more than that. Like in Moscow, what Yo was showing, this crazy 4-station interchange where all 4 of them have different names. In addition to having 4 different names, they were trying, like, you cannot go in direct passageway from one of them to another of them. So 2 of them are not connected directly. You need to pass through one of the other 2. And for many, many years, they were trying to show this fact on the map by crazy tools. But it is the only place where you can go from one of those lines to the second of those lines. So there is no decision the passenger can make from understanding this detail. So they don't need to show it. But when you arrive at the station, of course, they need to show you how to get to that line. So I think what I think we need to start doing is that maps of these complex stations, of these hubs, are also something that we need to begin to do on a regular basis, and maybe come up with some design language for them that will be more universally understood, maybe in 10 years or in 20 years. But we need to start this as a universal type of map also.
Yeah, because something like the cross-platform interchange that Andrew showed us, that's an easy change, isn't it? You just get out of one train and you're in the next one.
If you know.
If you know. But then how do you let people know that with the minimal amount of information that doesn't clutter the map, so that they know they may have to walk out in the rain, for example?
Yeah, in Moscow, several years ago, they started to put little dots in these kinds of interchange, and in the list of symbols, they listed as a cross-platform interchange. And I was asking my friends, how many of you know what a cross-platform interchange means? And nobody has an idea. So it's just a term that transport planners and transport engineers use, and they think it's helpful to put it on the map, but real passengers have no idea. They just think it's some dot, and they still are confused if they don't know.
Yeah, to add to that, at least what we try to do in Jakarta to differentiate that. We try to use line thickness at least. I mean, we don't use the white on the black on white blob, but we use lines to connect the between the stations. So if the station is directly connected to each other, we would just use a very thick lines, because we use station numbering, and our codes are similar to what Tokyo has. So the thick of the line is almost the same as the big of the circle itself. So people know that is directly connected. But if it's not directly connected, we will just use a thinner line with an additional pedestrian sign on it. So people know that you have to walk through to transfer.
We added to in our last map. We have some closed or nearby stations that maybe in the previous versions we used to put that's a hub, and now we improve it a bit and we say, okay, it's an external light link. It maybe take you 2 minutes walking, but we cannot say people this is a hub or this is a connection station, because that's not true. We have to help them and be absolutely clear about that. Because if you have you are on Wiltshire, maybe you cannot do that link.
Because every obstacle to a passenger is going to put them off using the system again.
I wanted to offer a different perspective. So in Singapore, we have the privilege of using the station code. So if you're familiar with the Singapore map, every single station is given a unique number and an alphanumeric code. So with that, we actually are able to very quickly tell you that which stations are connected and interchangeable, right? Because you will see 2 different colors and 2 different codes. So that was a design that when I tried to redesign, I actually, instead of killing that, I wanted to pull that idea to even further. So we brought that shape and that design into the station, onto the signs. Previously, it wasn't. So I wanted people to associate the map with the station signs better. So now that station code is also the line code, so that you can continuously follow this shape along the station. But we do have a very weird situation, because Singapore is a very simple system. I always tell people we have a very simple system until one day we have a paid transfer, tap out to pay transfer, and then the country freaked out because it's so out of the world. But everyone here is like, yeah, we have that because of constraints, right? So finally, we met a constraint like that. So we took the opportunity to create a new symbol, which is completely different from everything else. So everyone knew interchange means something is stuck together, but we had this opportunity to split them with a line to, to show that it's something different. And like Ilya, you said, the term that we use in engineering and back behind the scenes has to be translated. So we literally say tap out to transfer. Like it has to be very basic. So that was an interesting thing. And then another one was also that it was not designed to be an interchange. It's the same line, but we have this line that crosses itself. It comes back to itself. So these two stations are actually very nearby, but it was never designed for an interchange. But because we had this tap out to transfer, we had the opportunity to update policy level in terms of payment. So with that, we actually made a general rule. Like if you tap out and you can run to another train station within 15 minutes and tap in, it will still be considered one journey. So we did a test, and actually that two stations is now considered a free interchange. But it was by popular demand, meaning people started to ask, why can I not do that as an interchange? And then it became an interchange. So people formed a hub by themselves. And I found that very fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating. And you talked about this a minute ago as well, that almost at some stations now, every station is a hub, because people don't just live next door to the metro station, they actually have to get there, and they're using bikes on the micro and the macro that Yo talked about. Should we now be thinking really of every station as a hub, because people have to make that last little bit of a journey? And also because of something Sam said there, the payment method is now becoming so streamlined for some people who use handheld devices that they don't care whether it's a tram or a metro or an overground or an underground or a bus. They just want to go from their place to their place, and they just want the smoothest journey. And I wonder, is this going to have an impact on how we help them to map their journeys? Be people being mode blind, if you like.
That's actually a very tough and interesting question. I mean, for starters, just to see like in the mindset of Indonesians, like right now, the options are usually two Indonesians. If you want to use transit, of course you use like apps to guide you, right? And with that already, that's actually halving the job. You know, with that right now, you can actually travel. Like for me, for instance, going to Hong Kong without no knowledge whatsoever about the transit system and whatsoever, I can go from my place to this place by have within a click. That's actually in a lot of ways solves like the problems of hubs. I mean, that's mentioned again with you, like there we finally have like a technology to help us, but then we realize that something that has been actually solved, which is within the hubs itself. Like I mean, how basically every station, as mentioned by Sam, is going to be a hub. Even in Indonesia, the smallest station are now actually a hub because everyone goes there to do some activities, and now is actually a center of development in urban terms. And seeing that, of course, we start to have to think like, what kind of, what kind of, what should hub then be? Should hub be actually limited to some extent, or hub can be anything? Because that's the issue we have in Indonesia, at least. Like hub is always considered exclusively for intermodal transfers, instead of like as Sam mentioned, that everything is a hub. So that's I think should be a matter of a discussion. What kind of hubs that we actually thinking. Yeah.
I mean, on the mode blind, it's quite a revolutionary idea, and I don't think I can accept it right now as a user myself. But I will tell you about Singapore, which is quite interesting. We notice in the demographics, so the senior citizens in Singapore, the elderlies, they tend to favor buses because no matter how many times they need to transfer, there's the least amount of walking required, and they will get them from point to point. But for the younger generation, it's like, I just want to get there fast, so they will always choose the metro. So that's something that we noticed. But what we did policy-wise, which I'm going to get to, is we realized that we cannot see the two as separate. It has to be one complete journey. Start from bus, metro, end with bus. So to answer your question, I think it takes much more than architecture design, right? It's policy level, like payment modes across operators, across types. It's a very tricky problem that a lot of cities are still trying to solve. So while the idea is, you may say Singapore is like, oh, it has reached ideal state, but I think it took a lot of work. to iron out a lot of the details and lessons from other cities as well. So, yeah, I would say it would be ideal if we can reach that for many, many cities. But personally, for example, if I come to Hong Kong, when I'm here, my default was metro because that's the one that I'm most comfortable with. If I'm lost, I'm still in a space that I can navigate. Yeah, but I wouldn't even think of taking the public buses here, which is very strange for me to say.
The more we listen to the experience of many years of designers and we think about the production of the maps and the linking with the wayfinding, this has become, and I know Matthew's going to speak about this tomorrow, this has become so much of the brand of the transit organization. So the wayfinding, the typography, the way the maps look, everything has got to be brought together. How can we as a map makers work better with people who are working in wayfinding and all the other parts of the metro system to make the smoothest operation, do you think?
As a person, we're currently also working with a public transport operator. At least in Indonesia, it's so weird to see that the mindset hasn't actually even reached that. They didn't realize how design and maps and signages are actually the frontliner of the surface, which I actually mentioned tomorrow. Like, there is like disparity between what we're thinking as a brand design, a graphic design, and wayfinding design. Because while graphic design, you had the capacity and the freedom to basically design things. Like for wayfinding and signages, yes, of course you have those freedom as well, but it has to be very utilitarian in a lot of ways that everyone has to understand what you're trying to convey. I mean, for difference like graphic designs, I mean, some people might understand things, but some people don't. But wayfinding, you of course, if you want people to understand what you're offering in the surface, of course you have to make that design as clear as possible for everyone. And that is the challenge that we're facing in Indonesia right now, because not many people actually realize that the importance of maps, which I'm trying to push for them. Only after I try to redesign the entire wayfinding and maps, at least in the Indonesian railways, they started to realize, of course, that's going to be the first thing everyone's going to see when they come to a station. When you go to the station entrance, you of course notice that the signages are basically your first frontliners, to which they finally started to realize of the importance of it. So that's why I think it's something that we really need to push for, at least in Indonesians' point of view.
I want to add on. So you mentioned like the map is the first thing people see, right? So not everything is perfect in Singapore. So when I joined, I realized that there were no maps at entrances. So I found that very bizarre. Like so the analogy I used to tell the stakeholders is that imagine going to McDonald's and then there's no menu, and then you're just supposed to order something. So took us a bit of effort to put that in, but once you put that in, everybody expects it to be there. It's the thing. So I would say to inspire sign designers to align is to get everyone to see the map first. Yeah, and then I was in a privileged position to be able to do both, and then that's how we extracted elements from the map. Yeah, so what I think we can do if we are trying to convince the team to do that is you can read Ilya's book. Because it has elements, right, to talk about maps and how those elements actually informs your wayfinding. It's all connected. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I guess my answer is just to try your best to make the map as beautiful as possible so that it is not considered just some technical part of the space like a fire plan, but it is entertaining. It is like inspiring some people. It makes like an attraction of itself, so that people want to look at it, want to see how beautiful the icons are, how beautiful the lines are, how good the colors are, how good the typography is, so that from there you can like expand all this graphical material, and that is something I will talk about tomorrow, to other elements that you use around the system. So I think if we want the maps that we make to be not just a map that has to be there by some law, but a piece that is a source of like branding, we need to put the most effort into like every single detail, and we need to learn about typography, about graphics, about color as much as we can. And we need to explore like other areas of design and what kind of thing people do there. Even if, like for example, 3D. I have never used any 3D modeling software for my design, like any design. But I think if I knew that, if I was able to use it, I would come up with better designs. Maybe in some of my maps I could have incorporated that, and that would be more like easier to read or more beautiful or whatever. And there are some other tools. For example, some designers are not very good at typography or at whatever, at color, and their maps are lacking because of them. So the more disciplines you can learn and try to use, the better the result.
But at last, we have to think in accessibility, and sometimes these bored or traditional icons are the most clear for everyone. Because I agree with you, and I have so fun designing 3D icons and anything else. But alas, in a Signa system or in wayfinding, we need to find the typical things, and maybe if we all share the same icons, we will make strong our language. So we all together share this goal and the same mission, guide people throughout our network. If someone starts to put some colors, etc., maybe it doesn't work as well for everyone. But I agree with you. I'm a freak of that, and I like to improve and try things. But sometimes you say, okay, maybe people will not understand that.
So are you two making an argument that we do need to go along Jug's lovely idea from a few years ago of international symbols, icons, that they're pretty much the same everywhere? I mean, we use the same symbol for an airport on all the maps. Should we all be using the same symbols for a hub or an interchange?
Could be. I think in some way we are doing it. Since Harry Beck's first map, we still doing almost the same, but of course there are icons that can't be the same for every ATM. For example, of course in Barcelona we have Montserrat, the mountain, and we have specific icons that it's the same cable car, but behind the cable car there's the mountain, and we can decline one icon, but at last I think, like you, that okay, an international icon for an airport, it's perfect. Why not?
There's sort of already like a ISO for that, like icons, what I know of that. But if you want to start a war with designs, then maybe we can do that. Because I think there's, I mean, standardizing everything is always a good thing, but I think we have to see like what kind of things that generally is could be implementable or not, because there's a lot of already different cases. Like if you go to Indonesia, of course, there's something that there's some icons that people wouldn't understand because they lack context. I mean, so I think standardizing in a lot of ways in general, yes, but to everyone use that, I mean, it's going to start a war.
And I think the airport symbol is standardized also because it's connecting you to the other side of the world. So there's a reason, like there's an invisible map outside of your metro map that continues to someone else's airport symbol, right? But to talk about, I mean, stretch a little bit to talk about other symbols in the system, right? So for example, the toilet symbol in Qatar generated a bit of confusion during FIFA World Cup, because we localized the symbol a little bit too much. Well, not we, none of us here, but someone did that. And then it's very nice for us to see, wow, you actually localize a symbol as simple as a toilet sign. But when it comes to the international guests, we really couldn't figure out which one was male and female. Yeah, so that's an example. Yeah.
But you don't identify the toilet in the map. So I was
Oh yeah, thank goodness. No, no,
I
no.
was
Yeah,
talking
every station
every
has
moment
toilet.
about maps,
Yes.
not about all
Yeah.
icons, because I'm a graphic designer. If we made everything equal, I will lose my job.
Yes.
I was actually inspired by your talk in Abu Dhabi, where you showed some of the iconography for Qatar. I think it was Qatar, where like people were wearing national clothes, even on the like simplified graphics, and I like that a lot. And also, even for the airplane icon, there are like thousands of ways you can draw an airplane. And on our Tashkent metro map, there are like two terminals of the airport, one for international flights and one for local flights. And we actually drew separate icons. The international airplane is like a large turbojet engine, and for the local flights, it's like a smaller plane with this fins, whatever is the word, like, propeller, yeah, I forgot the word. So they are both airplanes, they're easy to recognize, but it was a little bit of fun to make them different, and it made sense in the context, so why not? I think we can standardize like the general symbol if it's an internationally understandable symbol, but then we could have a lot of fun in the details. So
Some people put the airplane on 90 degrees, someone on 45 degrees. Which is the right version of that?
So to sort of round up, I think we need to round this up now. I wonder if we can think about the future. Can we use the maps that we have designed to be scalable? So you use a handheld device or a computer to look at the beautiful designs that you guys have done and that you people are making, and then you can zoom in and get more and more and more detail. And there is one or two maps like this, isn't there? There's the Kik map from New York, where you have a diagram, a schematic, and you zoom in, and then you get more connections and buses, and then you see the streets and the individual buildings, and you can zoom right back out again and get the beautifully designed schematic map. Do you think that this is a way forward for designers to be able to work with the scalability of maps?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, because I'm a designer and I want to see it work. Like, it's a very fun thing to know that I can zoom into a schematic map, right? But I think if I need to touch a digital interface and I need to zoom, as a user, I may feel more inclined to go towards a geographically accurate map, which is Google. Because if I need that kind of granular detail, I may use the roads and the surrounding buildings to give me more context, rather than design that into a schematic form. But that's just me as a user, but not a designer speaking. But as a designer, yeah, I want that.
it sounds like an interesting research project. Like, I'm trying to imagine how a schematic map would become less and less schematic when you zoom in, so the lines sort of blend into like the real geography. And as I envision it in my head, it sounds like a lot of fun. How complex of a project it might be, I don't know, but that's something to explore. But your question reminded me of launching Transport for London map in digital form for the first time. I don't know what it is like now, but it was like the most stupid implementation of London tube map I have ever seen, because at some levels of zoom, it's the same as the map that they use in print. If you zoom in, the lines become bigger, but the captions become stay the same, so they become smaller, like in relation to the lines, and there's just a lot of empty space around them. And if you zoom out, at some point the captions just disappear, and you see only the lines. And like, there is no reason to do that. There is no use at any other zoom level other than the one that just represents the actual printed map. So maybe they fixed it, I don't know, but for me it was like, how, like, if they just let me zoom in and out the actual printed map as like a PDF, it would be even like better than this, and somebody had to spend time programming this. So if you do that, you need to do that well, and I think it will take a lot of effort.
Or maybe you can zoom in and then introduce new lines like bus lines, but not change the schematic map because you lose your reference of so when you take a look on zoom out of the whole map, okay, you take a quick reference about what you will find. Then if you zoom in, don't change the schematic for cartographic, but maybe you can add some extra lines about buses, or maybe tourist points, like, okay, if I zoom in Passeig de Gràcia, it will appear La Pedrera, but or Sagrada Familia. But I don't know. Hope someone tries, and let's talk about that.
I'm thinking.
Well-
Oh, sorry. No, I was just thinking from the user interface point of view, that may be a very natural way to look into details. So even if the map itself doesn't morph into like a local map, if you zoom into a station symbol and it gives you some UI to like look into connections or like other station features, it may be more approachable than if you have to pick the station from a list or maybe like double tap or whatever. So we can just use this zoom gesture to help them learn about the station.
I'm just waiting for that idea to be rolled out because I'm just curious. But we tried to, at least what our experience in Jakarta, we tried to create like also like a citywide map, which has a lot around 250 routes that goes through the alleyways and everything. I mean, it's quite actually sensible to have, for me at least, the combination of the schematic map that we have in general, like the big, idea of the city, and just a very detailed map of the area itself. But what we're trying to do in Jakarta, at least, it's just very simple. Like when you click the area of where you want it, the pages show changes into the geographical map of the area, but a more detailed of the route. But that's at least the simplest form what I can think of about that question, actually.
Fantastic. Now, I think we're going to have to wind up, aren't we? Because we've overrun a little bit and we've done our 40 minutes. But if not, we can carry on. What does the boss say? Go one more. Okay. Well, here's my last one then. Do you think if we're having this meeting in, say, 10 years' time, there will still be any paper maps available?
Oh yes, absolutely.
For
I
sure.
think. Oh, sorry. I think going to reach your phone is one of the worst things that you have to do when you're traveling. I mean, I love doing something with my phone, but not when I'm trying to figure out where to go. Like if I'm on a train waiting to get off in 3 stops, sure, I will be happy to read some emails or to play some games or watch something, whatever. But when I'm alighting and I need to find the next train or the next bus, I don't want to touch my phone, especially if I'm having luggage with me. So I want all the information I need clearly put on the walls, on the signs, on the floor, like on the screens, whatever they may be. So printed maps, printed like physical signage, I think is going to be more, not less.
For you guys, having printed maps I think it's a very normal thing, right? In Indonesia, it's like the fight is backwards because the lack of maps and signages from decades, having like actual maps is just a very new thing for us in Jakarta, which means having printed maps is something new even from Jakarta. So that's actually the fight that we're doing in Jakarta, to actually push the government to print maps, like printed maps, and actually distribute it like any normal system would do. Because the funny thing is about having all the paperless movement and everything. We tried to actually ask our bus operator to do this, and they always say, yeah, it wasted. We're going green by having digital because it's paperless and everything. But they didn't realize how not inclusive it is to push that digitalization forward, because not everyone is having the access to phones. That's at least the Indonesian context. That's why like wherever, even when my boss say like do digitalization, I was like, oh, come on, man, just keep the paper first, then have the digitalization as like an add up or anything, because as maps will always be there at the stations, and having digitalization is for us is just like a addition. That's
Another good example is someone invents ebook, and every day people still reading in paper. Why? Because we love paper. Yeah, a map in a station helps you to understand all the network. In a screen, you just see one part, or just to get from A to C, changing on B. We need to see all the system. We need this in our life. So I think for sure in 10 years, paper or printed maps will be in the stations, and it will be amazing, better than now.
So for Singapore, we have printed maps, but they are kind of secret. So if you know the code word to ask the station staff, they will give it to you, which I found very funny. And then meanwhile in Qatar, it's like the most important thing. The map is out of stock. Quickly reprint it. Someone is so dedicated to print the new version of the map. And it's always out. People always take it. So I found it very fascinating how maps printed are still so important to some of us. And I like to think that it will still be. Because I really firmly believe that digital everything is not the solution. Even digital screens in the station may not be the solution. But I really don't know. Like maybe by the time our generation retire, the next generation may not feel very strongly about paper. I don't know. But for us, I like to say that we love the paper, right? Yeah.
So I think that the collective opinion of the panel here is that we will still have paper maps. Thank goodness. There's still jobs for us all. Please, please, please do thank our panelists, Samuel Lin, Ilya Berman, Adrian Yassin Suleiman, and Marty Roos. Thank you very much.